Hi, Lester, Wushu Engineer. I hope that all of my viewers have been well over the last couple of months actually, with everything that's happening in the world right now. If it isn't one thing, it's another. We've weathered another flood down here in Queensland, Australia, and it appears as though there may actually be another one on the way. In a few days, we received nearly 400 mils of rainfall. In fact, it even appeared as though the flood levels were higher for us locally in our road than during the famous 2011 flood in Toowoomba. However, our property is well protected against flooding because the valley that we live in is well drained by Flagstone Creek and its tributaries. We only experienced relatively minor flood damage. There are a lot more people in the world who are far worse off than us right now. So we consider ourselves very lucky. In addition to this, I've also been getting increasingly involved in engineering consultancy again, which is sucking away much of my time that I would perhaps otherwise devote to putting videos up on the channel. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that I've been very busy working on a number of projects for the channel, but they've all been delayed to a greater or lesser extent by circumstances and the forces of nature. One project that I would like to talk about today, though, is actually something that the Wushu scientist and I have been formulating and trialing over the last few months. However, before I launch into a full description of this project, I wanted to stress a few warnings and disclaimers. Although the products and supplements that I'm going to discuss in this video are fairly benign and can be typically bought over the counter from most chemists or from online supplement companies, that does not mean that taking supplements of any kind or description is completely without risk. Remember that in sufficient quantities, even such a basic necessity of life as water can become detrimental to one's health or can even become deadly. I strongly urge anyone considering making or taking supplements of their own to research them for themselves and to discuss their use with their GP before taking anything. This video is thus not intended as an encouragement to anyone to take supplements of any kind. It's presented merely for interest's sake, for informative purposes, and for entertainment. In addition, the product I'm going to describe is not a commercial product. We are not selling this. The recipe for the supplement could thus be considered more like an open source resource for anyone who's interested. Finally, I will be showing various product wrappers and websites in this video. In all cases, we are in no way affiliated or receive any financial benefits from showing or mentioning these products. It's just a royal pain in the butt to blank out or remove identifying logos. And in some cases, like for instance, if I'm showing a website, removing the logo literally defeats the purpose of showing the website in the first place. Now on with the description. The Wushu scientist and I are very serious about our training. We do not train as martial artists for recreational purposes. We are professionals. In order to sustain our professionalism and develop further as martial artists and self-defense professionals, we require a professional level of training. Now for us, our current training load can vary anywhere from 20 to 30 hours per week. Note that this total does not actually account for time spent teaching and training students. This is just representative of our own personal training commitment. This training involves a wide range of different types of activities that can include martial arts focused strength training, which we also call potency training, qigong or breathing and breath control training, forms training, sparring, bag work, calisthenics, physical and mental conditioning, groundwork, weapons training, weapon sparring, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on. These various types of activities have varying physical demand profiles, but often involve longer periods of moderate activity with shorter bouts of high-intensity cardio thrown in, as well as short-duration, high-intensity single-event training, such as might be expected from potency training regimes or intense striking sessions. Perhaps even intense grappling sessions as well. Because of course the high intensity grappling and high intensity sparring can also be quite physically demanding and could very much be considered a high intensity activity. If you're anything like me, getting out of bed early in the morning with 4 or 5 hours of demanding training stretching ahead can be a little bit daunting. I've trained at this kind of intensity week in, week out for many years now, and I've not used any kind of pre-workout mix except for freshly made green tea. Green tea is said to have been consumed by the ancient Shaolin monks to help with their mental focus and physical endurance. And there is enough scientific evidence to support that notion, and I'll share some of that a little bit later in the video. Green tea is a mild stimulant and does contain caffeine. Aside from green tea though, I tend to avoid other harsher stimulants such as coffee or other products that contain high levels and in many cases artificially high levels of caffeine. So that typically rules out most pre-workout mixes, which are stuffed to the gills with all manner of stimulants. In fact, I've not seen a pre-workout and pre-workout administration or dosage protocol that's been scientifically developed specifically for intensive martial arts training regimes. Most pre-workouts seem to be designed for a typical gym goer who needs a massive boost of stimulants and other supplements over a relatively short period of time, like an hour for instance. There are a few non-stimulant pre-workout mixes that I have seen that are commercially available, but none developed specifically for martial artists who train like we do. Let me know in the comments section below if you have actually seen something specifically developed for martial artists. I would be quite interested in having a look at the makeup of that particular pre-workout. The Wushu scientist though, as part of her ongoing work with the University of Southern Queensland, has been incidentally involved in a few studies on the effects of various supplements on physical performance. Some of these include studies into the effects of taking high levels of sodium bicarbonate to offset muscle fatigue by neutralizing the acidic effects of hydrogen ions formed in the muscles during exercise. As a side effect, it's not particularly pleasant to take sodium bicarbonate and often results in nausea in the person that it's administered to. But it is interesting nonetheless. It's an interesting study. So at some stage in the future, we may try applying sodium bicarbonate dosing to the type of training that we do, maybe at some point in the future where I don't feel like keeping my lunch inside. However, the Wushu scientist's involvement in these other studies has led her to develop a bit of an interest in other forms of supplements that may be of benefit to the type of training that we do regularly to help support us. As such, we decided to develop a pre-workout mix that was scientifically formulated and designed specifically for martial artists who train in similar ways to the way that we do. Fortunately for us, there are actually a number of websites that ship high-quality bulk supplement components and nutrients. In fact, one of the websites we have encountered and ordered from is actually called CYOS, or Create Your Own Supplement. They appear to have been founded relatively recently in 2015. So clearly there is a market for people who want to make their own DIY supplements. CYOS even has the option to produce, package, and sell your own supplement formulation. However, this is a bit expensive for us to even consider. Nevertheless, over the last few months, we have been experimenting with various pre-workout ingredients, mixes, and dosage protocols before finally settling on a mix that I'm going to talk to you about today. I've used it regularly now for the last few months, and it certainly helps to get my nearly 50-year-old frame into high gear. I can definitely feel the physical and mental benefits of having that extra kick in the rear to get me going and to focus on the task at hand. So firstly, as a bit of a spoiler, this mix doesn't contain anything weird or elaborate at all. The ingredients are all pretty bog standard for pre-workouts, sans the stimulants of course, because we decided not to put any additional stimulants into the mix. But it has been working really well for us in our training. You won't find exotic ingredients like unicorn entrails or pixie dust in our formula, just tried and tested components that have proven measurable effects on physical performance. In addition to our own use and experimentation, some of my martial arts students have volunteered as guinea pigs to trial the pre-workout. And many of the responses from my students have been positive. Hence me sharing the recipe and dosage protocol in this video for anyone who's interested in the formulation of our Jade CyberDragon pre-workout. Firstly, I'd like to discuss the main active ingredients and mention some of the scientific studies that have been performed on their effectiveness. So there are 4 main active ingredients, and they are citrulline malate, beta-alanine, creatine monohydrate in this case, and matcha, it's green tea powdered green tea. As mentioned earlier, we have no financial connection with the companies represented in the packaging here. They're simply reasonable suppliers. Any gym supplement company would be able to provide these components. Well, I should give a warning that that there are poor quality ingredients and there are good quality ingredients, and it's recommended not to try getting dodgy back of truck fly-by-night salesmen to provide you with any kind of supplement that you might be taking internally. It's better to go with reputable manufacturers and suppliers. Before I go on any further, I would also like to remind my viewers of my previous general warning about supplement use. Anyone who's considering taking supplements should first discuss their use with their doctor or GP. In addition, I would like to issue a specific warning about one of the ingredients in particular, which is beta-alanine. Beta-alanine can cause what's called paresthesia in some people who ingest it. So this often equates to a tingling or burning sensation in the skin. It certainly does cause that reaction in me and also in the wushu scientist. Although we don't find it particularly unpleasant, other people do. Now on to the full discussion of the active ingredients. So first of all, I'll start with citrulline malate. Citrulline malate is a non-essential amino acid which has been found to increase nitric oxide concentrations, which may result in improved skeletal muscle function through improved blood flow, contractility, and mitochondrial respiration. I might add that I will be putting the references that I'm using in these descriptions into the video as text, so you can access those studies for yourself if you like. Citrulline malate has also been found to improve aerobic function in exercising muscle, which equated to a 34% increase in the rate of ATP production during exercise, and a 20% increase in the rate of phosphocreatine recovery after exercise. It's also been found to increase performance in upper body resistance exercises and lower body multiple bout resistance exercises, and significantly increase the number of repetitions or of resistance exercises performed to failure. I might add though that some studies have failed to show significant improvements to exercise performance or recovery from exercise. This may be as a result of dosing strategies, a lack of retest reliability of protocols, or other issues. A systematic review and meta-analysis on the effects of citrulline malate on repetition performance during strength training was published last year. The researchers reviewed 8 studies and found that citrulline malate supplementation resulted in an increased number of repetitions compared with a placebo. They concluded that acute citrulline malate supplementation may delay fatigue and enhance muscle endurance during high-intensity strength training. I'll go on to now to beta-alanine. Beta-alanine supplementation has been found to increase muscle carnosine concentration, which is a dipeptide that supports muscle function during exercise. A key physiological role is pH regulation during exercise, which results in reduced muscle fatigue. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in 2017 reviewed 40 studies performed on the effects of beta-alanine supplementation on exercise, including exercises such as rowing, cycling, counter movement, box and squat jumps, swimming, running and sprinting, isometric strength and other exercise tests, and found a significant overall beneficial effect. And now I'll speak a little bit about creatine. Creatine is one of the most well-researched and popular ergogenic supplements and has widely been shown to improve exercise performance and training adaptations and reduce recovery time. Creatine supplementation increases stores of phosphocreatine, which is broken down to provide the most rapid source of energy for muscle action. There are hundreds of studies that have been conducted over the years demonstrating the positive effects of creatine supplementation. A recent review by Wax et al. Provides a good overview of the current literature. And finally, I'll talk about matcha or green tea. It's been shown that green tea optimizes mitochondrial function, increases lipolysis and fatty acid metabolism, reducing fatigue and improving endurance performance. Decaffeinated green tea extract was found to significantly improve distance covered and average power output during submaximal cycling exercise. The consumption of epigallocatechin 3-gallate, try saying that fast, a component of green tea, was found to increase maximal oxygen uptake, or VO2 max. There is of course a lot more scientific research available on these 4 main active ingredients, but this little snapshot provides sufficient basis to support Jade CyberDragon pre-workout as a viable pre-workout mix. I might also just add briefly that those studies into green tea consumption really do lend us a certain level of support and credence to the old idea that monks would drink green tea, monks who trained in martial arts would drink green tea to help them in their training. Certainly there's enough basis to support that notion. I'd like to also briefly talk about flavoring. Now, I'm not particularly fussy about how nutritional supplements taste. If something is good for me, I don't mind taking it.
Hello, Daniel. Rorschach. Help myself to some beans. Hope you don't mind.
No, of course not. You want me to heat those up for you?
Mine like this.
However, these main ingredients can be quite sour and acidic in taste and unpalatable for most normies. So we included some flavoring and sweetener to improve the taste. I decided that the green color and acidic taste of the active ingredients went best with a lemon lime or lemon flavor. If necessary, one could also add powdered green stevia to the mix to provide some additional sweetness. We didn't in this case. However, if we did, we would typically prefer the relatively unprocessed green powdered stevia rather than the more processed colorless variants. Of course, any kind of sweetener could be used here, such as monk root for instance, although I would tend to personally shy away from using artificial sweeteners, although this is more a matter of preference and opinion. So I'll go on to discussing the proportions, the basic proportions of the various components in the Jade CyberDragon pre-workout mix. We based our proportions on a total serving size of approximately 14 grams, taken for an exercise session. This serving size is partly based on some recommended daily dosages for some of the main active ingredients. Each daily serving can be broken up into 2 or 3 serving sizes based on the number of training sessions performed during the day. Within each daily serving are the following quantities: 6 grams of citrulline malate, 2 grams of beta-alanine, 3 grams of creatine, 2 grams of green tea powder or matcha, and as a flavoring, roughly 1 to 1.1 grams of lemon lime flavor. So the Jade CyberDragon proportions by weight for the citrulline malate, beta-alanine, creatine, matcha, and lemon lime flavor are in order 6:2:3:2:1.1. In order to get these proportions correct for medium to large batches of Jade CyberDragon, we use a reasonably accurate digital kitchen scale like one of these, for instance. For the smaller batches, we have to use a more precise laboratory style scale like this mini scale, for instance. The last thing that I'd like to discuss in this video is the dosage protocol or use protocol of the Jade CyberDragon pre-workout. It could be considered the most unique aspect of Jade CyberDragon because as far as the ingredients go, as I've mentioned before, Jade CyberDragon is pretty standard when it comes to pre-workout mixes. Of course, without massive amounts of caffeine in it though, so that is one difference. But in terms of the dosage protocol, instead of taking one big hit of pre-workout in the beginning and burning out after about an hour, which is fine if you're only training for an hour or so, we have instead spaced the dosage out over our atypical longer training program. In my case, I take up to 3 doses of 3.5 grams each of Jade CyberDragon pre-workout at regular intervals through my morning training program. And that leaves me with an extra single dose of 3.5 grams of Jade CyberDragon. And incidentally, this is what it looks like. Pretty green. Obviously because of the green tea. So that leaves me with an extra single dose of 3.5 grams of Jade CyberDragon for my shorter evening training segment just before I have to start teaching classes in the evening. Using this dosage methodology has worked quite well in our case, based on our own anecdotal experiences. I did not think that the use of this pre-workout mix warranted a controlled study of any kind because the active ingredients have already been so well researched. Perhaps there may be a possibility of interactions or synergies between active ingredients that could be studied, but this is well beyond the scope and the budget of a simple YouTube video. I've definitely noticed a definite improvement in physical performance coupled with greater psychological resolve, mental focus, and physical and mental endurance though, as a result of using the Jade CyberDragon pre-workout mix. Well, thanks for listening to me drone on until the end. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all again next time. Cheers!